What's up, guys? This is EJ Holland with the Wolverine.com, and we are back with our Tuesday live show. Apologies for the late start today. I had some IT issues. We have some storms in the area, and it seems like I needed to restart everything to get going. So hopefully we're over the IT issues. And as you see, directly next to me, live from the great state of Michigan, is the return of Zach Livy. Zach, how does it feel to be back?
It's been a long 4 weeks. We're back in the saddle and just in time for the barbecue, right? So, what better time to return? So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously, it is a big weekend over at Michigan. Just some housekeeping items. We will not be having a Wednesday show tomorrow. I will be traveling, so no show tomorrow. So if you want a question answered on tonight's show, make sure to leave that super chat. It's the little dollar symbol with the box around it. That money goes directly to our travel budget, so we can continue to see Michigan commits and top targets across the country. So again, no Wednesday Q&A show tomorrow, but we are here today to preview the barbecue at the Big House. More than 60 recruits are set to come in this weekend. Let's start off with the 2025 recruiting class, and arguably the most intriguing prospect coming in is top 100 wide receiver Jerome Miles out of Utah. Now, Zach, Jerome Miles is an absolute freak. He's another bigger bodied wide receiver at 6'3", 215, but he also has blazing speed at 10 with a 10.36 100 meter. Again, that is elite. When you look at Philip Wright, he's a kid that runs in the 10.4s, except Miles is like 40 pounds heavier and 4 inches taller. So he is one of the true freaks in this recruiting cycle and has really started to rise on the trail. You see, Utah has the heavy lead on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. This will be his first visit to Michigan. Zach, how are you feeling about the Wolverines' chances with Miles going into his first trip to Ann Arbor?
Yeah, so he's coming off a decommitment from Ole Miss. He's only taken official visits to Oxford and then Texas A&M. The Aggies are important to mention because there's around 5 schools right now that are really in the hunt for Jerome Miles. And, when you look at the Aggies and Wolverines, you also have to include LSU, Utah, the RPM favorite, and Penn State. He's mentioned before that official visits to LSU and Penn State are going to take place in the fall. This is going to be an unofficial visit when he goes up for the barbecue this weekend. So it's absolutely imperative that this visit goes well enough for Miles to come back in the fall. Ideally for one of the marquee home games this season. But yeah, as you mentioned, this is a 5-star in my opinion. When you look at the film, just an insane catch radius. He's able to make plays out in open space. He's able to, create separation from defensive backs, and just such a great size on him for how fast he is. Obviously the athleticism is off the charts, and that's what Bellamy is going after. And so is offensive coordinator Kurt Campbell, who actually was the one who found him, who first evaluated him during the spring. So, it's great for Miles to get on campus, see what Michigan can offer from an on and off the field standpoint. And then we'll find out if the visit moved the needle enough in order for an official visit to happen in the future.
Definitely. So something to mention with the Miles recruitment is Michigan has 2 wide receivers already committed in Philip Wright and Jacob Washington. They have the lead for Andrew Marsh going into this visit, and we'll talk about him in a second. So that would be 3 receivers if they are able to get Marsh. They would absolutely make room for Miles. So again, the plan has been to take 3 wide receivers, but they would make room for a 4th with Jerome Miles. So like I said, we're going to talk about Andrew Marsh. So Jerome Miles isn't the only top 100 wide receiver coming in. Andrew Marsh set to make his 3rd trip of the summer. Remember, he was on campus twice in June, one for an unofficial visit, one for an official visit for Victor's weekend. And it was after Victor's weekend where I went ahead and logged an on-3 recruiting prediction in favor of the Wolverines. And look, I really like where Michigan stands with Andrew Marsh. I have no reason to feel less confident in my prediction. In fact, I probably feel more confident right now, especially if he does go with the August timeline. Remember, Marsh was initially set to make a decision on Veterans Day in November. He's talked about pushing up that decision to kind of late August, around August 20th. So if he does make a decision in August, I would expect it to be Michigan. Other schools like USC, Washington, Kentucky have continued to push as well. We all know what Kentucky can do from an NIL perspective. Washington's done a really nice job of recruiting him. He took an OV to USC. But at the end of the day, I think the best relationships are with Michigan. You see, Texas and Oklahoma are also featured on the RPM, but neither school seems to be really making a move for Marsh. It seems like both schools are pretty much out of it. So the door is wide open for Michigan to completely close with Marsh this weekend and potentially land him in August. He's been a top priority for a couple of years now. Like I said, this will be his third visit of the summer, but it'll also be like his sixth visit overall, seventh visit overall. He's been to Michigan a ton, especially for a kid that lives down in Texas. To make that many unofficial visits shows just how serious his interest is in the Wolverines. I think Ron Bellamy has done a fantastic job here. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Another Texas recruit coming in is Jaden Sanders, on 300 cornerback. I think the most realistic cornerback target left on the board right now in 2025. There are some flip candidates. Michigan is looking at guys like Auburn pledge Donovan Starr, several of the Texas A&M commits, but I think that with Jaden Sanders, Michigan doesn't have to flip him from anywhere, and they're right at the top of the list. Michigan has a 93.8% chance of landing him. I feel pretty good about my prediction for the Wolverines. I do have a little bit of hesitancy with Oklahoma State. That's the biggest competitor here, and they are making a hard push to get them to stay closer to home. But I think Michigan's obviously the superior program. I think this visit will allow Michigan to continue to show Sanders the comfort away from home. It'll give them another chance to impress his family on that first visit. I believe only his mother made that trip. So this will be a good chance to get his father on campus as well. And, I think if Michigan impresses on this visit, which no reason they shouldn't, they should be able to beat out Oklahoma State and go into Texas and win them over, which would be a great land for Lamar Morgan. That would give Lamar Morgan 3 on 300 commits, and so 3 on 300 defensive back commits. So that's pretty impressive. And then you kind of shoot for the stars and try to get a flip, or maybe a late riser in the fall. But I think getting Sanders on board is key, and you pair him up with an elite nickel prospect in Kainoa Winston, really, really high-end safety prospect in Ivan Taylor, and things are really coming along. I think you'd still have that question mark about who would be the corner next to Sanders, but I do think that, like I said, Morgan would have the flexibility to go after some flips, some late risers. So it'll be intriguing to see how it all plays out. But it starts with closing with Jaden Sanders, this weekend, because just keep in mind, he is looking to make his decision right after the barbecue at the Big House, sometime, the final week of July going into early August. So this visit is absolutely critical for Jaden Sanders. Now, most of the commits are coming in as well. That means guys like Carter Smith, who's been a vocal recruiter this cycle, Eli Owens, guys like that will have a chance to really recruit some of the other commits. Now, we're not really worried about, any commits, with the exception of Philip Wright might get some more interest here from LSU, and that's something we're going to monitor moving forward. But the big one we've been keeping an eye on is Nate Marshall. Now, Michigan's top 100 defensive lineman was supposed to make a visit to Auburn this weekend for their Big Cat weekend. Remember, Auburn hosted Nate Marshall for an official visit, and again, was expected to go back to Auburn for an unofficial visit for their barbecue at the Big House. So, Zach, how are you feeling for their Big Cat weekend now is going to be at Michigan for the barbecue at the Big House. So with Marshall not going to Auburn and now just going to Michigan, I think the plan was for him to go to both Auburn and Michigan. Now that he's just coming to Michigan, how are you feeling about the Wolverines' chances to keep him?
I think pretty good. I think from what I've been gathering these past few days, the official visit really kind of solidified him as, a Michigan man per se. I actually texted Nate a couple of days ago just to see how everything was doing, and he said nothing but great things over text about how Victor's weekend went, the official visit being with all the commits, garnering friendships with them, and as well as just, keeping those connections up with the coaching staff. When he first committed, I mean, he went in depth multiple times about just how much of a catalyst, Lou Esposito, Don Martindale, Jerome Moore, those three coaches, I mean, they were really instrumental in helping land Nate Marshall soon after the spring game in April. And I think, when you look at other factors into it, Jalen Williams committing, another Chicagoland pass rusher is good friends with Nate. I'm sure that helped. But then also, I think just I think we see this quite a bit when you see at Victor's weekend when all the commits are able to be there together. They're able to build that bond before they're even able to, play together. Some of them meeting each other for the first time, talking to each other outside of text. I think that weekend really just helped Michigan's, in fending off other suitors. Overall, I think him coming back for the barbecue kind of puts more comfort and confidence knowing that Michigan is able to lock him in this summer. Obviously, we still have 4 or 5 months to go, but I think the confidence in him signing with Michigan is a lot higher than where we were, let's say, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think with Nate, the fact that he's not going to Auburn speaks volumes. I think the Victor's weekend definitely helps solidify his commitment. With that said, I think it's recruiting, and anytime you have NIL schools like Auburn and Miami involved, it's worth keeping track of until National Signing Day. But so far, so good. Esposito did a fantastic job of initially closing with him, of preventing him from going to Auburn this weekend, and he has ties with the family that have that run deep for years. So I think that Esposito has done a fantastic job overall in this recruitment, both landing him, re-recruiting him, keeping him committed, and things of that nature. So we'll see how things progress in the fall, but definitely positive news on that front. And I see some people asking in the chat box. We have a full list of visitors over at thewolverine.com, and no, DJ Sanders is not on the list. He is not coming. We were talking about Jaden Sanders, the cornerback. DJ Sanders is the defensive lineman. But if you want the full list and plenty of coverage, you can head over to thewolverine.com right now. Use the promo code UM1. That gets you $1 for 2 months over at thewolverine.com. So if you want wall-to-wall coverage of this weekend's barbecue at the Big House event, use that promo code UM1. That's $1 for 2 months. And also make sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And again, I see more people have joined. We will not be having a Q&A show tomorrow because I am traveling. So if you want to get a question answered, make sure to hit that super chat button. That money goes directly to our travel budget, and we will answer it on tonight's show. Let's go ahead and talk about 2026. Now, the visitors list for the 2026 recruiting class is absolutely loaded. It's great that Michigan's bringing back a trio of 2025 targets as well as a lot of the commits, but 2026, man, that list is fantastic. And we're going to be breaking down some of the guys. We can't go through all of the guys, but before we do that, Michigan has the advantage now that they haven't had in a while, and haven't had, I don't even remember, I guess since JJ. They haven't had a quarterback actively recruiting for the next class at the barbecue at the Big House in a long time. And now they have the advantage of that with Brady Hart. So Brady Hart, obviously gave Michigan an early commitment last month. He will be back on campus and is really looking to establish himself as the leader of this class. He's already been working behind the scenes a little bit on social media as well. Now he gets a chance to really connect with some of Michigan's top targets at this event, which is huge. You want a quarterback that's out there recruiting, that has a magnetic personality, that's building relationships with some of these recruits from across the country. And the cool thing about Brady Hart, if you've been following my coverage, is he got to spend some time with a few key targets at the Future 50 event in Florida last month. He was actually on the same flag football team, so they had the flag football portion of the event. He was on that same team as Savon Haider, a top 100 running back, and on 300 wide receiver Travis Johnson. Both of those guys will be on campus for the barbecue at the Big House this weekend. So kind of familiar faces for him already. So he gets a chance to recruit them again. He gets a chance to meet some other targets he hasn't had a chance to spend time with, like CJ Sadler, who's from the state of Michigan. So I think this is a big event for Brady Hart to do a lot of peer recruiting, to build bonds, to get face-to-face time with a lot of targets. And that way, these social media attempts don't just fall on deaf ears. There's already really true bonds with these guys because they're going to have time to spend the weekend together. So really interested to see how, some of these targets connect with Brady Hart. And I'm sure he's going to give maximum effort, just like Carter Smith will be doing with Jerome Miles and Andrew Marsh. I think Brady Hart has a long list of guys that he'll be connecting with for sure. So, one guy he's definitely going to be working on is top 100 wide receiver CJ Sadler, who I mentioned, and he is the top recruit in the state of Michigan, a guy both Zach and I have covered for a long time. CJ's been to Michigan quite a bit. He's kept things close to the vest with his recruitment. Not a super talkative guy. He's been down to LSU. He's been out to Colorado, but Michigan with the heavy lead on the On3 recruiting prediction machine early on. How do you feel about Sadler? Can Michigan land the number one player in the state of Michigan for the first time since Will Johnson?
So I put in an early prediction in for Michigan to land Sadler a long time ago. And that was mostly due to the, having Sadler, with Sadler having his lead recruiter be Steve Klingscale. But with Klingscale gone, I thought things were going to get pretty open. We're going to wait and see who would end up being the lead recruiter for Sadler or in the Detroit area. In the past 3 months, really since the spring camp, wide receivers coach Ron Bellamy has done a fantastic job in just continuing to prioritize the number one player in the state of Michigan on the On3 industry ranking. I mean, I've been high on Sadler ever since I saw him when he was in 8th grade. Just a three-way star, someone who can be a wideout, a corner, a return specialist. He plays Wildcat quarterback for his high school. He is someone that is a must land. And I have said that from the very beginning. He is someone that Michigan cannot have to leave the state or go to Michigan State or really any other Big Ten school. I think he's been able to get really familiar with the new coaching staff after being there for the spring game. 3 months ago, and then his team actually participated in a 7-on-7 event hosted by the Wolverines at the Big House last month, and then now he's going to be there for his first barbecue. He's very familiar with the game day setting. He's been to 3 games so far. That number is only going to rise. And as someone who, Michigan has really put such an emphasis on backyard recruiting. I mean, this is priority number one when you look at Metro Detroit area guys next cycle. So having him come for this weekend just to get more time, with Jerome Moore, connect more with Ron Bellamy, potentially speak with Lamar Morgan, if that's something he ends up doing, going to the defensive side of the ball at the next level. But overall, I mean, this is huge just to have him back before the season, because this is a kid who really, really focuses on his game during the fall. So not a lot of visits are made by him during the fall. So coming in right before fall camp starts is huge for Michigan's sake.
Another big-time offensive recruit coming in the 2026 recruiting class is top 100 running back Savon Haider, who I just mentioned, out of my current home state of Virginia. And because I'm so close to Savon, I've already had a chance to go out and see him quite a bit. And, Savon has kind of a similar personality as CJ Sadler. It wouldn't be surprising to see them become friends at this event. Kind of a quiet confidence, lets his playmaking stand out for itself, doesn't do a ton of talking, doesn't do a ton of recruiting stuff either, just loves to play football and is damn good at it. With Savon Haider, man, you're talking about one of the most explosive running backs in the country, very elusive back in the open field, all-purpose back as well that can catch passes out of the backfield, line up at wide receiver. I think you're going to see, you saw the elite flashes from him as a sophomore. I think you're going to see just a dominant season from him as a junior. He had a really good showing at the Future 50 event. Like I said, he already had a chance to connect with Brady Hart there. So I'm sure they'll be spending a lot of time with each other. And right now, I think Michigan is right at the top of this list. I know the On3 recruiting prediction machine has Virginia up there because Haider's been to Virginia, with it being the home state school. But I would say Georgia and Michigan would be the schools that really come to mind as top teams in this recruitment. Clemson's in there as well. Ohio State's in there as well. But, the relationship that he has with Tony Alford has been really strong over the last year and a half, 2 years. Alford previously recruited him during his time at Ohio State. I know that Savon and his family really trust Tony Alford, as do the people around him as well. So I think Michigan's pointing in the right direction. Plus, it's an easy sell to an elite running back, right? Come run behind an offensive line that's always dominant in a run-heavy system. You are guaranteed to get the rock. So I think there's a lot to like about Savon Haider and a lot to like about where Michigan stands. This will already be his second visit. Remember, Savon Haider didn't even have a Michigan offer, which is absolutely insane, before the arrival of Tony Alford. Once Alford put an offer on the table for Haider, he made a visit right away. He was on campus just a few weeks later and now set to come in for his second unofficial visit. So I think this visit will have a chance, or this event will have a chance to move the needle even more with Savon Haider. Before we dive into some of the other recruits coming in, I do have a message from our sponsor. Tonight's show is brought to you by My Perfect Franchise. Are you a displaced corporate executive or wanting to put your career in your own hands? Or are you an experienced entrepreneur wanting to diversify? Well, Andy Ludicky can help. Andy is a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through consultation and evaluations. Call Andy today. Put your life and career in your own hands. Best of all, his services are 100% free to use. So what do you have to lose? Andy is available via Zoom. You can visit My Perfect Franchise, learn a little bit more about it there. You can call him at 404 973-9901. Get on the phone with him, or again, set up that Zoom meeting. You can email him if that's your preference at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. So if you're looking to get into the franchise game, Andy is the man. If you've ever dreamed of owning anything, any franchise that comes to mind, 7-Eleven, Chick-fil-A, whatever you want, Andy can help you find your American dream. Okay, let's get back to the barbecue at the Big House. So again, a really loaded visitors list. So we're not going to go through everybody in the 2026 recruiting class, but Zach, let's go back to the offensive side of the ball. Give me one or two guys that you are excited about early on, and you kind of like where Michigan is trending with them.
There's about two that are ones that you can say Michigan is really trending for. The first one is Jack Janda out of Detroit Catholic Central. 3-star tight end, someone who was recently offered by the Wolverines during the spring evaluation period. He's been on Michigan's radar throughout his high school career. I mean, he's been at Orchard Lake St. Mary's for his first 2 years of high school, but, with new tight ends coach Steve Casula in the mix, he saw Janda at a combine and then quickly pulled the trigger. Since that combine, this will actually be Janda's third appearance in Ann Arbor. He's been to Michigan 3 times since Casula saw Janda live in a live setting. So hence why Michigan is the leader for the On3 recruiting prediction machine. Michigan State and its new coaching staff are prioritizing Janda as well. But I mean, this is a kid who grew up in the Detroit area, watched Michigan his entire life, is impressed with the tight end production. Colson Loveland's ascension is certainly something that is intriguing for a kid like him. But I think this barbecue visit will be able to allow him to get more acclimated and get further details of how the operation is and get to meet more players and recruits and all that good stuff. The other recruit that I have been I've been saying this for a long time with this recruit. He's another in-stater, top 100 offensive lineman, Greg Patrick out of Portage, Michigan. He is one that I have kind of banged the drum about Michigan fans really following this recruitment closely, because not only is he from the west side of the state, but he's also a Michigan State legacy. So Michigan State is the early favorite right now, but we got a long ways to go, and Michigan is really prioritizing with Grant Newsome and Cheryl Moore as the lead recruiters. I know some people have kind of expressed hesitancy that Michigan can end up landing him just because of the ties that Patrick has with the Spartans. But again, offensive line production, the national championship, the relationships that Newsome and Moore have got with Patrick and his family, I mean, that is playing a big deal. And this is why this is going to be his 5th or 6th visit to Michigan since June of last year. So moving forward, this is going to be an in-stater that fans really need to be following. It's not just Sadler, of course. Obviously, Sadler is a big fish, but another one that fans really need to keep tabs on is Gregory Patrick.
One offensive player that I will highlight here, a couple that I'm excited about, not necessarily trending towards Michigan, but a couple that I'm really, interested in that I've seen in the past. One is Travis Johnson, right here in my backyard. Goes to school about 20 minutes where I live. On 300 wide receiver out of Oscar Smith in Chesapeake, Virginia. Like I said earlier, Travis Johnson had a chance to bond with Brady Hart at that Future 50 event. And what was cool about that is when Brady Hart didn't really know any of these guys going into that event, and they were just kind of thrust into playing that flag football with the weird rules and stuff, and immediately just kind of developed an instant rapport with Travis Johnson. He was the go-to wide receiver for Brady Hart throughout the event. And I remember joking with Brady and being like, hey, Travis Johnson's going to be at the barbecue. And so I know that they'll be spending some time with each other. You know, he's a big bodied outside receiver at about 6'3", 175 pounds. Has just gotten better and better every time I see him. So I think Travis Johnson is definitely a guy to keep an eye on for the barbecue at the Big House weekend. He is one of the best playmakers in the 757 here in Virginia. Like I said, a big bodied wide receiver, already has that connection with Brady Hart. Michigan needs to continue to add size to the wide receiver room, having only landed one recruit over 6'2", only one wide receiver recruit over 6'2" since the 2022 recruiting cycle, and that's Jacob Washington here in 2025. I think Travis Johnson would be an excellent addition and add kind of that big body in 2026. Another recruit I want to highlight that doesn't do a ton on social media, but I had a chance to watch him at his spring showcase, and that was Marky Walbridge out of New England. So Marky Walbridge is really intriguing, flexible offensive lineman, a guy that can play some tackle, can move inside to guard as well. He's an on 300 prospect. And, Michigan wasn't able to close with Hardy Watts this cycle. They'll have another opportunity to go out to New England and get a high-end offensive lineman in 2026 with Marky Walbridge. Now, he visited Michigan last year. This will be his second visit. And as you see here, most of the sites have him ranked as a 3-star, but On3 actually has him as a top 150 kid. And I thought he looked the part and checked a lot of boxes when I had a chance to see him live during that spring showcase. Grant Newsome was actually out there seeing Walbridge at the same time I was. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on. Penn State and Michigan are the top two schools on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. All right, let's slide over to the defensive side of the ball. Now, we are over time, guys. So if you have a question for us, make sure to hit that super chat button and get an answer on, or get your question answered on tonight's show before we head out. So Zach, kind of same thing on the defensive side of the ball. Which one or two targets really stands out for you on defense on the barbecue visitors list?
One for me is 4-star Kenneth Goodwin, originally a Las Vegas native, a town that has Bishop Gorman, and a school that Michigan really prioritizes cycle. But he was a kid who got an offer during the spring evaluation period when Michigan coaching staff went out there to Sin City to see a multitude of schools. When I actually talked to him afterwards, he mentioned that going to Michigan for a visit was something he wanted to do as early as possible, and paying out of pocket to go to the barbecue, to go all the way from the West Coast is big. I think the little things like this, kind of building the foundation for the 26 class, I think is big for a coach like Brian G. Mary, who is clearly going after top linebackers in the class of 26, as we saw that this offseason with the 25 class. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Kenneth says about Ann Arbor, about the program, about his experiences out in the Midwest, unfamiliar territory per se. And then another one, I'm going to stick in the West Coast. Another one is 4-star edge Sean Scott out of Mater Dei, out of the Trinity League. Michigan lost Jay Harbaugh this offseason, and he was, the primary West Coast recruiter. But I think over time with this new conglomerate of staff, I think it's been a unison effort to go after West Coast targets and really evaluate the best of the best out there. This is another one with Sean, who got an offer during the evaluation period. And when I talked to him, just like Kenneth Goodwin, he wanted to get out there. He wanted to get out to Ann Arbor and see what the national champions were like. And I think with all edge recruits, Sean included, I think with Michigan's history of producing NFL-ready defensive linemen, outside pass rushers, I think that sparks early intrigue for sure. So he's another one I'm going to be monitoring just to see what it's like, how he handles being out there in the Midwest, being out of his comfort zone, seeing the schools that aren't nearby. And I think it's kind of interesting when you look at kind of the landscape of college football too. You're seeing, with the Big Ten specifically, you're seeing 4 West Coast schools entering the conference. I think that kind of gives Michigan a really good avenue to make further pitches on how, with West Coast kids, you may not be playing close to home, but your family has opportunities to see you because of how travel ends up shaping up with this new conference realignment. So again, Kenneth Goodwin, Sean Scott, I'm going to see how they, I'm looking forward to their reactions after the barbecue.
I know that I said no questions tonight unless there are super chats, but I love this question. If you had a chance, who's your choice for running back 2026 class, Savon Haider or Javion Osborne? So I totally forgot to talk about Javion Osborne, and that is my bad. Osborne's also coming in and also a top 5 running back in the country, the number 1 running back in the country 4-on-3. So Tony Alford bringing in 2 elite backs in Javion Osborne and Savon Haider. Now, the answer to this question is extremely difficult because I'm more familiar with Savon Haider. And the reason, I've talked about Savon Haider a ton is because he lives not too far away. And also, he's been to Michigan. This will be Javion Osborne's first trip to Michigan. So, once this visit happens this weekend, I think we'll start talking about him a lot more. I think people or the Michigan fans might not be as excited because they see the RPM and they see Texas has this huge lead on it. But man, Javion Osborne is a fantastic back as well. And both of them are dynamic. So I don't think I can give the answer to that question yet. I'm going to go back home to Dallas here soon and, make it a priority to see Javion. So I'm excited about both of those guys. I think Tony Alford has given himself quite a few great options at the running back position for next cycle. You talk about Haider, you talk about Osborne, you talk about Javion Mallory, who was on campus last month as well. So Alford doing a great job there. Let's go back to the defensive side of the ball so we can get out of here. A couple that stand out for me are names that I'm, familiar with. Well, one is obviously Luke Wayful. Everybody knows that Owen Wayful was one of my favorite signees last cycle. His little brother, Luke Wayful, is even more highly recruited. He has quite a few major offers. He's a really intriguing prospect that played multiple positions last year when I saw him for the Hun School. So he's listed as a defensive lineman, but you see he's 6'4", 225. He's more of an edge, but he did play some H-back, some tight ends, some running back. So he's kind of a versatile piece. And like I said, he's even more highly recruited than his older brother. So, Michigan defensive line coach Lou Esposito had a chance to meet Little Wayful for the first time for the spring game. And, Wayful made an unofficial visit there with his brother. And so there's, already starting to build that rapport. I think, little brothers have been hard to judge whether Michigan's going to push for them or not. But with Luke Wayful, I think that one's probably a yes when you look at the rankings, the amount of attention he has, the exciting athletic season ceiling for him. So I'm really interested to see how Luke looks as a junior. Last year, I thought, the flashes were there, but I really wanted to see him put it together. I'm really excited to see if he can do that this season. But I do think that he's one of the more interesting prospects coming in, and that tie to Owen is definitely a help for Michigan. Obviously, both him and Owen are very close. And another East Coaster is Joey O'Brien. So I have not had a chance to see Joey live. Unfortunately, Michigan offered him late during the spring evaluation period, and I was unable to hit that school. But Joey O'Brien is that taller safety that Michigan wanted this cycle and wasn't able to get because Jadon Blair ended up spurning them and committing to Notre Dame. You see, Notre Dame has the heavy lead for O'Brien on the on-through recruiting prediction machine. He's been there, but the fact that he's coming in for the barbecue at the Big House shows that he has legitimate interest in Michigan. I think the Wolverines can make a big move here. And it's clear that Lamar Morgan likes this type of safety. He wasn't able to get him with Jadon Blair. But I do think that O'Brien, is a prospect that he could have a better chance with in 2026. So I'm interested to see what O'Brien has to say about Michigan, since most of what's been written in his recruitment has to do with Notre Dame. We'll kind of see how that one plays out. But I'm also really excited to see him in the fall at some point as well. So that is your barbecue at the Big House preview. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also subscribe to the Wolverine.com if you haven't, using the promo code UM1. That's $1 for 2 months. And we'll have wall-to-wall coverage over at the Wolverine.com for everything barbecue at the Big House. Now, before we do get out of here, Zach, it is tradition to answer the OT question of the day, and you haven't been on here for like a month. So John Schultz remembered to ask one early in the show. So before we get out of here, Zach, the OT question of the day is, EJ and Zach, is it okay to have breakfast for dinner? So is it okay to do that, Zach?
Yeah, I guess. Not big breakfast for dinner guy anyway. I don't know. Eggs and bacon and sausage and waffles and pancakes, that's a breakfast item, not a dinner item. Unless you're really lazy. Unless you're a lazy person, then breakfast for dinner for sure. But there's other things to eat for dinner.
I will say that I'm not a big breakfast guy in general. I hate mornings. I hate being an early riser. I remember like all the teachers used to be like, when you're an adult, you're going to learn how to love mornings. And I still do not. So screw you teachers, because I did not learn to love the mornings. I still hate them. So I don't really have an opportunity to eat breakfast. When I do, it's kind of a treat. It's like, okay, I get some pancakes, I get some waffles. Back in Texas, we have the country fried steak and eggs. That's a man breakfast right there. But I think it's acceptable to eat breakfast for dinner if it's chicken and waffles. And being a Dallas guy, there's so many options for chicken and waffles if you consider that breakfast for dinner.
That's not really a breakfast item.
It is, because you have a waffle, right? And
but the chicken.
Yeah, the chicken's not a breakfast item for sure, but I mean, it's a combo. And like, there's so many good chicken and waffle places in Dallas. Like, the best I've ever had is Jonathan's in Oak Cliff, and they give you this great waffle. They actually give you boneless chicken, which is better than having the actual chicken, like the chicken wing or the chicken leg, because then you get sticky trying to eat it with the gravy and the syrup. Here they give you the waffle, they give you the fried chicken that's boneless, they give you gravy, they give you syrup. It's awesome. So, if you have a chance to have an authentic chicken and waffles, it's great. But I don't think I'm just going to eat a pancake for dinner. I don't want that, right? So, no. So unless it's chicken and waffles, then I guess we both agree here. We're going to say no.
Well, all right. My whole argument's changed. Waffle House, that's a 24-hour eatery. So, yeah, breakfast for dinner at Waffle House for sure.
But it has to be past a certain time. Right? Like, you're not just going to Waffle House at 7 p.m. Like, oh, yeah, I'm going to Waffle House right now.
I mean, some people have.
Some people have. Yeah, I'm sure some people have, like the person asking the question. But I'm saying, I think it's acceptable if you're going past 12:30 a.m. whatever, man, knock yourself out. I used to do that when I was in college, but we used to have a spot over by SMU called Cafe Brazil, which was just a souped up Waffle House. And I would have breakfast for dinner, but is it really dinner if I'm having it at 2 a.m.? Who knows?
No, that's a fourth meal.
Exactly. So, all right, guys, we will have more coverage on the food as well. Hopefully there's better food than last year's disaster of the viral chicken tenders at the barbecue at the Big House. So make sure to head over to get full coverage at thewolverine.com. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And again, we'll have nonstop coverage of the event over at thewolverine.com.